welcome to our YouTube channel, Kenya Young Journalists. I'm your host, Laura Nyagoha. Today we are going to talk about an issue that has become very common. You walk around and you hear people talking about mental health, but how many of us actually understand what mental health really is? So today we are joined by our guest who's going to help us understand mental health better by talking to us about her experiences. So hello.
Hello, good people.
So can you please start by telling us your name, a little about you?
Well, my name is Quintah Wambulwa. I'm an activist on mental health. I run an NGO, Girls for Girls, Africa Mental Health Foundation. And this is an NGO that tries to actually bring awareness and advocacy in the country on these mental health menace.
Okay, so before mental health, who is Quintah in general?
Well, Quintah is a student at the Technical University of Mombasa. I'll be graduating in December, God willing. I did Bachelor of Commerce under Maritime and Logistics. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so mental health, what drove you to start the organization?
Well, this is passion, and it actually began when myself have been a victim. So through speaking about it, I thought it was necessary if I actually involved my other students, or rather my whole community in this. I remember my experience back then, that was in 2018, when I actually had a heartbreak, and I didn't know how to handle the heartbreak. I dated this guy for 7 years. That's quite a lot, you know. Yeah. And so him being my first love, and I actually knew myself through him. So that was me having an identity through him. Now, when the heartbreak came, I really didn't know who I am anymore without him being around. So I went into depression. I went into, anxieties. My anxiety levels really rose. And I can say for a fact, I didn't know what it was at first. I thought I was okay, but from being an extrovert to now even changing being an introvert, something really strange was happening to me. And at that time, I remember the only safe place I ran to was drugs. So I ran into drugs. So I found myself smoking, I found myself drinking, I found myself losing interest in activities that I actually did love doing before. So now, going through this whole phase was quite something, and it actually ate me up. I lost weight. I lost a lot of weight, and people could see it. My family could see it, and they didn't really know. They didn't really understand what was happening to me until this one time when I was about to actually commit suicide. Because also I had these suicidal thoughts that were overpowering me. So when I wanted to commit suicide, a savior came, and I found myself in the hospital. And finding myself in the hospital, doctors had now known what the problem was, but initially I didn't know what it was. So when I explained to the doctors what was happening to me, and they felt this is mental.
So I want to take you back a little. Sorry if I'll be bringing up the memories, but what happened with the relationship?
Coming from a very humble background, a religious background to be precise, my parents really didn't want this relationship, because I remember I met this guy way back in Form 2. I was still young, So my parents felt having into this relationship would actually make my grades go down, or rather I would actually go astray with the upbringing, when I compare with how my life would change when I'm with this man, and then compared to my life with my parents. So my parents really felt this is not the right time for me to have a boyfriend. But because I was in love, I went ahead and still dated the guy. So we dated for quite some time, from high school to even joining campus. And then, when I joined campus, I was like married. Yeah, I remember in first years, I didn't have the memories that most of you guys have here, because I was already living some other life. And when we had like freshers night, I wouldn't attend because I would already have gone to Nairobi to see him. So I really missed a lot as a first year, because I was hooked to this man in the name of he's my hubby. Yeah, so I've been there in this, he's my hubby, and all my dreams were like his dreams were like mine. So we actually used to really work like a couple. So when the heartbreak really came in, I realized I didn't have anything. I've been relying on his riches. I've been relying on his life. I mean, he's been the one controlling me, because now it reached a point where all my bills were being paid by him, and my family really didn't have any impact in my life anymore. In fact, sometimes I'd actually be the one helping home, because I had some money, and that was the life I was living. So the heartbreak coming in was a total blow, because now I had to depend on myself, which was something I had never done in my life. I had to not even depend on my parents. And as a third year, that was really getting out of way, because I should have done this way back when I was a first year, not when I'm now finishing campus, And sometimes I would feel guilty, and I would actually not talk to my parents about it. So I would go for sometimes really without food, but I would feel, guilty of actually asking them, because I've never done that.
So did he cheat or what?
Yeah, I remember one day I went to Nairobi. I didn't tell him really what if I was going. I went unannounced for the first time ever in our dating life, and this time around I found him in bed with a woman. So that was a total blow. And I didn't know how to take it in. Even finding him with that woman and him telling the neighbors I am the ex. Yeah, I'm the ex, and I'm bringing on these chaos, because when I reached to the girl, I was hitting her, I was screaming and all. So neighbors really came into the house to wonder what's happening. It was early in the morning. So the guy comes out and tells I'm an ex, So I was heartbroken and rejected at the same time. And this is someone, when I was joining campus, my parents actually didn't want to bring me to campus. They actually had opted to take me to an MTC, because after Form 4, I think I was really already disturbing at home. That's what they say. But I think I was just a teenager exploring life. And now that I have money and I've passed exams, I was living my life. But my parents being religious and so all conservative, and I'm the firstborn, the only girl, that was unheard of, So they felt it's better for me to go to an MTC where still I'll be controlled. You know how MTC dress, So actually the guy had proposed to pay my fees. And because I had passed, getting a B+ in high school was quite something. So the guy was like, I'll still pay your bills. 20,000 a semester is nothing. And so I even stole the letter, I remember. And when I stole the letter, I told my mama, I'm taking myself to campus. So my mom was like, no, tell your dad about it. So I was like, I'm not going to tell him. He's already hid the letter. He's taking me to an MTC. I don't want to do medicine. I'm still going to Mombasa. So I had planned everything, and then my mom snitched. I remember my dad asking me, where are you planning to go? So my mom actually told my dad about it. And so I had a curfew at home, and I was told I would never go out of that compound. So people are joining universities, and I was like, wow, I need to now get the church involved in this. So I went, spoke to my pastor about it, and pastors came at home. They talked to my dad about it. It was an emotional moment that time, 2015. My mom was there sobbing, my brothers were sobbing, I was there sobbing. It was so emotional because nilikuwa nimesumbua. Yeah, so it was an emotional moment where my father was now forgiving me and allowing me to now join university. It was quite emotional, I remember. But you see, at the end of the day, I was doing this to still come to Mombasa. When they went back home, I'm left with this guy. So nothing was really going to change. Until now, when I'm meeting this man with a woman in bed, and I remember I've sacrificed my family, I've left my family for him. I've actually made my parents go through a lot because of him, So there's a lot to take in. There's a lot of regrets. There's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of, beating up myself. Yeah, and I felt like my family were like, tulikukataza, we've been warning you over this, So there's all these emotions over me, and the only thing I wanted was to just give up in life. Like, I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to actually face it, and actually escaped through drugs. They didn't help. The more I smoked, the more depressed I became. And, facing all these emotions at once were quite something. I went ahead, I shaved my hair, I remember. Those who knew me before started seeing some changes in Quintah, but really the community didn't know how to handle it. There are all critics around. She's been dumped, see she's losing weight, she had to shave, she didn't have money to sustain herself. They're all around, and I could hear them. But I was fighting a lot, and you see, having anxiety, because I usually have anxiety, I was diagnosed with anxiety. So when I get triggers, my anxiety levels rise. So I had anxiety, real anxiety, and sometimes I would get to school and people would be talking about me and I could hear it, and I could just, it's like I'm having these fights in my head. I feel like talking to them, like, you know what, guys, I want to actually tell them the thing, what's happening. But again, why should I explain myself? So I just let it be. But I get home, I'll break down and just, just sleep.
Okay, so I actually love your hairstyle.
Thank you.
And that part, you said you became suicidal at some point,
Yeah.
right? So how did you transform to this right now?
It has taken time. I wouldn't say it has been easy. I'm still on the recovery journey because we are human beings. Sometimes you wake up, you're good, and sometimes you wake up and you're down. Yeah, all these emotions are over you and you're like, I thought I was done. So healing has been really a process. Healing has really been a process, and I can say it has taken quite some time because also this relationship I was in took quite some time. Dating someone for 7 years now. Having the suicidal thoughts and then now getting myself into rehab was quite a transformation. It has really taken strength for me to now love who I am, to appreciate like, oh yes, this has happened. I was in denial. Like I said, I was in denial and I wasn't really accepting what was happening, and I thought drugs would actually help me. So I found myself the smoking bit and drinking bit, but when I became sober, and I actually remembered, you know what, Queen, you're the firstborn. You know what, Queen, you are the only girl. You know what, Queen, your destiny is not actually tied to that person. You need to create a new story. You need to actually now find who you are without that person. That is the courage that came into my life. I can say overcoming the suicidal thoughts has been me facing my fears and telling them, what, I'm coming for what is mine. I'm not stamping on anything. I'm not going low on anything anymore. I'm just coming for what is mine, and I want to really show the world what it means by being resilient, but what it means by being consistent, and just getting in with your willpower. Because I came to realize again, all these suicidal thoughts, it's about my mind. I'm the one trying to get my life out of hand because I feel I cannot face all these problems. So the easiest way is to actually commit suicide. Yeah. So all these thoughts were in me, and I was the one to now identify if I still wanted to think that way or to now think differently. Yeah.
So how long were you in rehab?
I was in rehab for like 2 months.
So where was that?
In Kenyatta. Yeah, it's a psychiatric center, but I usually say a rehab because it was more of it's secluded, and I have psychologists who would come see me all the time, therapists. I would have people who would come talk to me every now and then it actually helped me. I remember most of the things that I did there was just writing. I'm a writer, so I actually identified my hobby at that time. I felt, okay, so the only thing I can be doing is just writing, so I started writing. I wrote, and actually my idea of now doing this was actually from writing. I felt I need to start a platform where I can empower other women, where I can empower other girls who are just facing the same situation and they don't have an ear, they don't have someone to listen to them, or they can't hear it from anyone else. I remember when I was going through this, I needed someone who has gone through the same, who could actually give me hope. But I didn't get until I went to that psychiatric center. So this lady who would come talk to me and tell me, because sometimes I became psychotic. By psychotic means I didn't really get to actually differentiate what is real and what was not real. So this lady telling me of her story, I could now relate and I could feel, okay, cool, so I'm not alone in this. There are also people who've gone through the same journey, but they've come out stronger. And then I can speak of the spirituality point of view because I now became closer to God. I again realized all my problems at the end of the day, I needed to now get console and just get my strength back from God. So I really started praying about it. My family at home were also really were also there praying for me, fasting for me. I remember even my mom came over to Mombasa, and at the time when she traveled, the whole church had assembled at home to just pray for me because, there's power in prayers. Yeah, so also prayers have really helped me come along. I can say my journey has actually been a success because of God. Yeah.
So the organization, when did you start it, and was it like you alone, or did someone support you and help you?
I am a one-woman army, like I can say. This is all my idea. This is all my progress and my, my starting. Because immediately I came from rehab, I came to school. I started vying as a president. But there were so many controversial pictures and everything about me, so people really felt Quintah was not the right person to go for the presidency seat. And even having been the first woman ever in this school to go for the presidency seat, so everyone was really like, okay, so what's this lady, what's she doing different from what the rest are doing? But I knew what I was doing, so that's when I started it now. I started now speaking on this when I got the platform of vying. I went ahead and vied as a deputy president. Michael Ondoro was my president, but I didn't get the seat. Yeah, I didn't get the seat. Kina Mushiri were the one who won. So with me, what I was vying was to get the platform to help as many girls, because again we had gotten cases of girls committing suicide. We had gotten cases of girls just leaving school because a boyfriend did this and this to her. And so I felt if these girls would hear of my story and just believe in themselves, they would have made a different decision. So my point of vying was to help to reach to as many girls, because if I had the platform of being a deputy president, I would have actually helped so many of them through my forums. With the counseling process, there is a procedure for that. When you come to us at the hospital, you'll meet the counselors, you'll meet, like I said, the psychologists, you'll meet the doctors, and you'll meet survivors, those who've gone through a similar situation. So really at the end of the day, we'll have really covered everything, and we usually give numbers. So if you're going home after the counseling, you can always reach out. You can always reach out to now, if you want more counseling, you can always reach out. And also we get your number back, and we can always reach out to you when you feel like, you've taken some time before you reached out. So usually do also after sessions.